So let us explore another statement of Frankl. Man lives in and through values. We are meaning-seeking creatures. Our whole intention is to find meaning in life. Only when we do we really feel ourselves. Otherwise, it's like a lack of homecoming. You know, a search that doesn't find becomes desperate. But finding makes us feel, well, this is it. This is what I want. This is home to me. This is what gives me a human face. And Frankl described these common meanings that we all experience, again, logotherapy as a human science, in three main categories, which he called the creative values, the experiential values, and the attitudinal values. We'll address the first two in this session. What did he understand by creative values? Think about it. If we feel that we've got something to give, that is appreciated, that is received, you know, that we feel needed, we've made some contribution, it makes us feel alive. You know, we've got a purpose. In comparison to somebody that feels that whatever they do, it really doesn't make any difference, nobody wants it. How important, therefore, for us to feel creatively involved with our lives. Like, for example, a job that you do that you find no meaning in whatsoever can become so boring. A logotherapist wrote a book, The Unbearable Boredom of Being. Nobody can bear to be bored or to feel they have nothing really to do. There's nothing exciting, nothing that draws them and that involves them. Oh, my word. That is like a famous artist said, she's not afraid of dying. Dying isn't the problem. Living is, and she wouldn't want to live dying. You want to feel alive. And that's the creative value in whatever you do. That you feel, like Frankl said, we are most fully ourselves when we're out there in the world, serving a cause and loving and encountering others. Wow, that's what makes for a sense of real meaning in our lives. But for me, the experiential values are of the most supreme. And whereas the first set of values, the creative values, is what we give to the world, the second, the experiential values, is what we receive so graciously. The world is out there. It's waiting for us. It's available. And when we do experience its beauty, its truth, and its goodness, we think about listening to beautiful music. You're enraptured. Your spirits are lifted right up high. You can go into ecstasy. Or when you discover a truth so profound that it moves you. You say, oh, that's great. That really gives me an understanding that floods my mind with light. It banishes darkness of doubt and confusion. And goodness, to see people love each other, to see them caring for one another. To say, that is it. That is it. That is so meaningful. Now, you know, it's like finding that first kind of sense of homecoming in yourself and then opening up to the world that really is very important and that I want to describe in two experiences of Frankl himself and in the camps. I choose to use Holocaust survivors and people like Frankel to illustrate these fundamental truths in life, because when the chips are down, we really know what we want, what we're missing, what we're struggling to find. So here is a description of Frankel when he was at a very low point. And like we said in the previous video, we don't want to feel abandoned by life, cut off from it, discarded, like the Jews in the Holocaust being put on the list of the unwanted. Can't live with those feelings. And this was his struggle that he captured in this way, and this is how he broke through. The dawn was grey around us. Grey was the sky above, grey the snow in the pale light of dawn, grey the rags in which my fellow prisoners were clad, and grey their faces. I was struggling to find the reason for my sufferings, my slow dying. In a last violent protest against the hopelessness of imminent death, I sensed my spirit breaking through the enveloping gloom. I felt it transcend that hopeless, meaningless world. And from somewhere, I heard a victorious yes, in answer to my question of the existence of an ultimate purpose. At that moment, a light was lit in a distant farmhouse, which stood on the horizon as if painted there, in the midst of the miserable grey of a dawning morning in Bavaria. Light was shining in the darkness. For hours I stood hacking at the icy ground. The guard passed by, insulting me, and once again I communed with my beloved. Ah, the love of his life, his wife Tilly. More and more I felt that she was present. She was with me. I had the feeling that I was able to touch her, able to stretch out my hand and grab hers. The feeling was very strong. She was there. Then, at that very moment, a bird flew down silently and perched just in front of me on the heap of soil which I had dug up from the ditch, and it looked steadily at me. The spiritual eye contact of the awareness of love. Like Frankel said, so convinced was he of her ongoing existence that it didn't matter whether she was alive or dead, because the love that they had was everlasting. And then how it opened him up to the world around him that in the camps looked such a terrible place. But you know, no one can darken the world for you so that you can't get a glimpse of its beauty at the other side of the dark clouds. Listen to this description that he gave when one evening they were slumped down, so exhausted, on the floor of their concentration camp hut. But one of the prisoners came and urged them to come and have a look. There was a glorious sunset of blue and white and steel, wonderful colors of red. And then as they stood there, somebody said, "How beautiful the world could be." And this is it, you know, what we should become, what we ought to be, what our world ought to be. And listen how he experienced that world when he was released from the camp. I walked through the country past flowering meadows for miles and miles towards the market town near the camp. Larks rose to the sky, and I could hear their joyous song. There was no one to be seen for miles around. There was nothing but the wide earth and sky, and the lark's jubilation, and the freedom of space out of the confines of imprisoned existence. I stopped to look around and up at the sky, and then I went down on my knees. At that moment, there was very little I knew of myself or of the world, and I had but one sentence in mind from the Psalms, always the same. I called to the Lord from my narrow prison, and He answered me in the freedom of space. How long I knelt there and repeated this sentence from memory, I can no longer recall. But I knew that on that day, in that hour, my new life started. Step by step, I progressed until I again became a human being.